an attorney for the plaintiffs in the gun ban challenge, reacting to the judge invoking histories of black citizens in the United States being victims of mob attacks, and asking the questions, what if they had these very weapons that they discussed all throughout the week during that bench trial. Back at it with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning here as we go live, but also breaking out these individual segments. So let's get into it. Of course, in the previous segment, we detailed a lot of what the judge in the case, Stephen McGlynn, said in his closing, wrapping up the case, challenging Illinois' gun and magazine ban, invoking images of the 1917 race riot in East St. Louis, where he said 30-plus people officially in the fatality category, but he believes it was much higher. You can imagine hundreds injured, lynched, essentially. Just horrible history. But then he also talked about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he talked about recently in Aurora, Colorado, where people were victimized by a transnational gang with high-powered rifles. And again, asking that question, what if these individuals had these rifles that they themselves were discussing throughout all this past week in East St. Louis? After the conclusion of the trial, connected with David Sigale. He is the plaintiff's attorney for the Harrel plaintiffs in the Illinois State Rifle Association, and he shared with us his initial thoughts of what Judge Stephen McGlynn had to say in closing out the case.
I will tell you that it really resonated with me personally. And in fact, the entire reason how I became involved in this topic in the first place was from the angle of the view, from that viewpoint, let's say, of self-defense. And so that kind of tragedy, how does it not resonate with you? There's countless stories of people victimized, whether it's for race or their gender or because someone's bigger or just thinks they can, and suddenly someone walking down the street is a victim, or someone sitting in their home and or sleeping in their home, or or sitting up reading a book, who knows, they're suddenly in a split second they're a potential victim. And the issues in this case, so, for some is the difference between victim, potential victim and actual victim. And, I think that's why Judge McGlynn was telling that history of this town, and why the plaintiffs in this case, why it's so important to them.
So we had a moment to also talk with David Sigale about the final defense witness, and that was retired Lieutenant Colonel Jason Dempsey. And he laid out his career in the military, serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, commanding troops, and also training troops. And he said that, again, a defense witness, he recommends only training in semi-automatic, and they only trained in semi-automatic. He doesn't recommend burst or full auto. And he also laid out, the importance of having a machine gun operator versus the rifles that troops would carry, and saying that, the machine gun operator would be able to provide suppressive fire, and those carrying the rifles really should only use semi-automatic. So it seemed that the defense was using some of that testimony to try to say, listen, semi-automatic fires used primarily in the military. when it comes to these types of M16s or M4s. But later in cross-examination, you had some interesting things brought up as well. But just to the general opinion from Dempsey as the defense witness, essentially saying, hey, military trains in semi-automatic mode primarily, and they don't recommend full auto when it comes to approaching an enemy because it's wasteful and it's not accurate, and they went into some great detail about all of that. The plaintiffs coming back highlighting various military doctrine about, say, putting up a line of defense when you're being attacked in an airborne capacity. It says, military doctrine, they pulled it up in documents showing that use every available fully automatic weapon possible. No ammunition waste is to be worried about. I mean, that wasn't a full quote, but something like that, right? So if you're getting attacked from a helicopter, use every amount of full auto or automatic weapons that you can. Dempsey would push back on that and say, well, the certain firearm that they had didn't go full auto, it was just burst. But Dempsey still would say that he recommends only using semi-automatic in the military because, well, they are more accurate, he says. So asking Sigale, the plaintiff's attorney, about Dempsey's overall testimony, he shared his thoughts.
Colonel Dempsey obviously is a man to be respected, and I appreciate his service. And he obviously has, the kind of the definition of one man's opinion. I think that the other evidence that we've heard in the courtroom and that is going to be presented to the court contradicts that. But of course, Judge McGlynn is going to consider all the evidence, including that of the live witnesses, and he's going to come to his own conclusions based on following what the Seventh Circuit said.
So Dempsey was also asked by the plaintiffs a variety of questions in cross-examination, and let me pull up this X post here from the court yesterday, where I was feverishly posting these updates. Plaintiffs turned to question Dempsey, asked about personal ownership of a Sig Sauer AR semi-automatic rifle with 30-round magazine standard, purchased additional magazines for it, has attachments, added a pistol grip, barrel shroud, flash suppressor. Dempsey says he also reviewed Illinois' gun ban law, and he agrees Illinois bans rifle that he owns for personal use. Dempsey also says his opinion, and again, this is the defense witness, says his opinion is for training, not banning outright. He wants training and accountability. So getting Sigale's response to that, coming from the defense witness who was there to try to support the ban, saying he doesn't favor the ban, he would rather see training and accountability. Here's some of what Sigale had to say in response to that.
I mean, obviously from the pure standpoint of sitting at the plaintiff's table, it was interesting to hear, but again, insofar as it's not as if the state legislature is gonna suddenly go back and change its law or repeal its law, based on what Mr. or Colonel Dempsey said. I mean, it was certainly an interesting comment, and I'm sure Judge McGlynn will consider it in the mix. But again, I think it was one man's just a part of one man's opinion.
So again, Sigale sharing his thoughts, but also he was asked about the overall strength of the evidence and the testimony presented during live testimony.
Well, the first thing is that you have to remember that this week of live testimony is only part of the evidence that is going to be submitted to the court, and that is by agreement with the parties. It's by order of the court of how the judge wanted all of this to proceed. But if you're just asking me what did I think of the witnesses that the plaintiffs presented, I thought they were very impressive and knowledgeable, and but again, I don't want to say anything that implies anything other than the judge is going to review all the evidence. He was obviously paying careful attention to all the testimony, had insightful questions for the witnesses, and he's going to weigh all of it and make those determinations. But I thought that the witnesses that we presented, I thought they were very impressive and knowledgeable, and we certainly hope the judge agrees.
Again, the case wrapping up yesterday in East St. Louis, and the live testimony really focused on differentiating between military firearms and those that are available on the civilian market before Illinois' ban, of course, like the AR-15, semi-automatic only, being different than the military rifles that would be burst or full auto switchable. And Sigale shares some of his thoughts just about that briefly here.
Well, first, I think that's among the chief legal questions that the judge is going to have to answer. So suffice it to say, I disagree very strongly with such an argument.
Again, Sigale talking with members of the media, including myself, after yesterday's hearing. But he was asked again to reflect on the judge's final comments. We heard a lot of that in the previous segment, reviewing some of the live posts I made from the courtroom yesterday. Of course, that's all a rush transcript, and the full transcript will be released by the court before too long that people can get access to. But he talked about the race riots. So Sigale again reiterates the impact that had, because McGlynn said, these victims of violence, these black communities that had their houses burned down in East St. Louis, what if they had these firearms that were being debated during court this week? Here's Sigale again.
I think the first thing I took away from it is, first and foremost, that the judge cares very deeply about this town and this city and its history. And I have no other perspective, to compare or contrast it with anything else that he says, or that he has said. So just based on that one recounting, tell you what, I don't want to speculate on what the judge was thinking. I can only tell you what I was thinking, is that it brought me back to when I first was asked to become involved in this topic. And now I'm probably giving you more than you're asking for. But when I first got involved in this topic and I was asked, and it was actually for the McDonald versus Chicago Supreme Court case. That's the very first time that I was involved in this. And I was asked, is this something I want to be a part of, think about it, controversy, et cetera, et cetera. And right around that same exact time that I was asked about that, there's stories up in Chicago, like in the past month, like 2 or 3, of women who were killed with 911 on the phone in one hand and a useless restraining order in the other. And when I was asked that question, I thought, if there's something I can maybe do to help the next one whose significant ex other whatever is going to come after him, and there's something I can do, shouldn't I? And I feel that way about this, and I felt that way hearing Judge McGlynn tell the story about the tragedy that befell this town in whatever year that it was. So that's really all that's all I can tell you. I don't want to speculate on what exactly the Judge McGlynn was thinking when he told that story, but obviously that story in this city is very important to him.
So a lot to be said about the 4 days of bench trial in Illinois' gun and magazine ban on final judgment. Expect to get some kind of ruling after 30 days that the litigants have to file final documents and arguments about text history and tradition. We'll be reviewing that as soon as that comes out. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Join us each and every weekday morning here with America's Talking Network and thecentersquare.com. We'll see you back here on Monday. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend.